हरिः ओं श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। ॐ वक्रतुण्ड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुर्साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। Namaste friends. A warm welcome to session 76 of GIFT, Bhagavad Gita for Inner Freedom and Transformation. We are in the concluding section of the 13th chapter, Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga. As the name of the chapter suggests, we are learning to differentiate between the Kshetra, that is the field of our existence and interaction, and the Kshetrajna, the indweller, the knower of this field of existence. We all have heard about Michelangelo, the famous sculptor. And one day someone asked him that, how did you sculpt this masterpiece called David? And then he says that I just chipped off what all was not David. And that's what this chapter attempts to do. It attempts to chip off all that is not the true I. Today we're going to study verses 27 to 31, and our speakers for today are Dr. Sachin, Srimati Indu Ma'am, Shri Shiv Kumar, Srimati Kirti Sridhar, and Dr. Satyanarayana. The session will be moderated by Dr. Komal Prasad, who will give us the deep insights of today's verses. Over to you, Komal sir.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Can we get the next slide, please? Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. We are seeing the end portion of 13th chapter, Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga. Now, after explaining the answers for Arjuna's questions, we have Shri Krishna is taking us to the kind of conclusion of this chapter. And in the last few verses, we have seen again a review of Kshetra Kshetrajna. The next verse, 27, will be about that, where he conclusively again says, whatever being, sthavara jangama, that is moving or stationary, is born, know that to be out of the union of Kshetra and Kshetrajna. As Pannaga just mentioned, we'll have to chip off every piece of anatma from ourselves to see what is within, that is atma. So this is what the Drik Drisha Viveka, Atma Anatma Viveka, observer observed Viveka. So it all means the same, to chip off what is not us, what is essentially anatma. And then here what is important in this verse we are going to see is that whatever being, when we say this bhuta or something which is manifest, we shouldn't confuse this being with living beings only. It's about everything which is manifest, animate, inanimate, everything around us which we can perceive, which we can observe, which we can see, moving or stationary, is born out of union of Kshetram and Kshetrajna. It's not just Kshetrajna alone. It's not just the Kshetram alone. It's not just Anatma. It's not just Atma. It's a union of these two is manifest as a physicality, as a being. Okay, so this is the kind of summarization of the previous verses here. And then from the next verse, as we see in the next slide, a summary of benefits of this knowledge will be explained. Benefits are the Jnana phalam. as with every spiritual text, every chapter follows a kind of order in which, like we have heard from Swamiji earlier, initially it will be a kind of introduction about who is it intended for, what's the subject matter, then the actual subject will come, and then there will be a kind of what's the prayojana, benefit of going through that, and a summary of the entire text. So following the same pattern, in the next four verses, we are going to see the Jnana phalam. And we see the verse number 28. The next slide we see Sarvatra Samadarshanam. So that's the first benefit. So again, coming back to the previous slide, why I have mentioned this ice cream here. So imagine father and son are going to ice cream parlor. So the son is so much craving for the ice cream that he's not concerned about what are the ingredients of the ice cream, what are the benefits, what are the health benefits, what are the disadvantages of that. As soon as he sees the ice cream in front of him, he starts gobbling it up, enjoying that. Whereas for the father, who might be concerned about his health, about his sugar levels, he will be wanting to see the calories, what's the use, what's the disadvantages of having it, like that. So this kind of listing out of the benefits is for the person who is still not attuned, till not attained that mumukshutvam to gobble up that ice cream. Similarly, a person who is in that verge of getting into that Brahman, getting into merging into the Atma, merging the Kshetra and Kshetrajna, he will not even look into the benefits as listing out as 1, 2, 3 kind of essay answer. He will just revel in that wonder of seeing the truth. But for the technical purposes, these are listed out, which acts as a reminder and also acts as a kind of framework for us to revel it, the framework for us to enjoy the ice cream. Okay, so if we keep that in mind, this will make sense, and this will make us a kind of easy to understand why it is labeled like that. So the Swamiji labels the next three verses as three particular jnana phalams, and then Brahmatva praptih, which is the ultimate goal. The next verse 28 is about the first benefit, which Swamiji says is Sarvatra Samadarshanam. So that is Samam Sarveshu Bhuteshu. As I mentioned, Bhuta is anything manifest. All beings, living and non-living, everything which is manifest. So he who sees that Supreme Lord, the consciousness of the Atma, dwells alike in all the beings, and who is imperishable, he alone really sees, pashyati. So that's the first benefit. So everything he sees, that Atma, the consciousness, in everything around him, animate, inanimate, mountains, galaxies, mobile phone, this computer in front of me, everything is a manifestation which requires a union of Kshetra and Kshetrajna. So that's the first benefit. And then what's the next benefit? Next is Amritatva praptih. So we should know where our cells end, where our body ends, and where the nail begins. The junction between that when we are hammering the nail, otherwise we will injure ourselves. Okay. Similarly, the person who confuses Atma and Anatma, this is a particular reminder that Anatma includes our body-mind complex also. Okay, what happens to such a person who gets wavering in his belief or in his established knowledge about Kshetra and Kshetrajna, when he mistakes his body to be his own being, then he will ruin himself. From the standpoint of Anatma, he ruins himself by building up more and more karma, which he has to unwind either in this janma or in the future janmas. And from the viewpoint of Atma also, he'll be ruining the very concept and without understanding the differentiation between Atma and Anatma. And once somebody gains that knowledge, goes towards understanding himself only as that Brahman, then he won't be injuring himself, he won't be injuring uh, as a jnani, he won't be ruining himself. So that's what is meant by Amritatva prapti. Na hinastyam ma natmanam. So that's the meaning of that. And in the next verse will be about Akartritva darshanam. Okay. So prakrutaivacha karmani. Everything what is being done, the karmas are not my own because I am owning up only the Atma part, Kshetrajna part. Then every action what happens will be because of Prakriti alone. All actions are being done by Prakriti alone, by all means, and likewise, this uh, he alone really sees. Again, the Pashyati word will again appear. So this picture is of the London Eye. There are some 3, 4 these huge kind of giant wheels around the world. One is in London, one iconic London Eye. What happens? This keeps on moving very slowly, not like the giant wheels what we see in our exhibitions. It's a very slow moving where the cabins will come and people will get in and get out, but it won't stop. It will continuously be rotating like the karma cycle. As soon as you enter the samsara, whether you want it or don't want it, the cycle keeps on moving. Samsara keeps on moving. And the intelligent person will have to step out when the cycle completes and comes back to the ground level, as and when the karma is moving, because he realizes he is not a part of this cycle. And the only way to come out of samsara is that Akartritva darshanam, Akartritva bhavana. So he is not the one who is responsible for the movement or winding or unwinding of karma. So when he sees the ground, when he sees the reality, he just steps out and see how magnificent this creation is, how magnificent this world is. So that's the viewpoint of a Kshetrajna, Akartritva Darshanam. In the next slide, we see an extension of the benefits, which we can call as Brahmatva Prapti. Okay, so this one is the ultimate benefit where one sees the diversity of beings to be based on oneself and the origin to be from that. Mayeva sakalam jatam, mai sarvam pratishtitam. As how from the dream world a waker wakes up, in this world also, the super waker, the Jnani, wakes up to realize that he is one player in a big dream, which is this wakeful state in itself. Okay. And the very crucial thing here, which I will be explaining later in the end, will be at that moment when he realizes, as a person who is sleeping wakes up, suddenly he realizes it was all but a dream. At that moment when he realizes that this wakefulness is also a kind of dream, he attains Brahman, Brahmatva Prapti. There is no more effort required beyond that. We'll come to that later in the end after these beautiful verses gets completed. This is a wonderful set of verses, which is a kind of distillation of many Upanishadic teachings. And to start with, we'll start with Dr. Sachin, who will be explaining verse number 27.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The next slide. The verse goes this way. Yavat sanjayate kinchit satvam stavar jangamam kshetra kshetrajna sanyogat tadviddhi bharatarshava. And the literal meaning is whatever being moving or stationary is born, know that to be out of the union of Kshetram and Kshetrajna, O Arjuna. The next slide, please. So, this is a very unique verse We have seen this Kshetra Kshetrajna right from the verse number 1. The chapter name itself is Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga. And here it's going to be like an unfolding of what it actually means for a knowledgeable or a jnani. So, teaching of this verse, I have divided to simplify it because it is a Mahavakya. Literally, this verse, if we understand the entire gist of Bhagavad Gita. So, what is the misidentification which is mentioned here from the very beginning of this chapter? What happens if we misidentify things and how to remove such a misidentity? So, this is how I have divided. Let us see what is the misidentification which is talked about here. So, Kshetra Kshetrajna Samyogat. Now, this understanding, the real understanding is that nothing is two, it is one and the same. Samyogaha. If you don't understand, if you misidentify Atma with the Anatma, this is what is the normal this is the misidentification of a Jivatma. Also, uh, this leads to the Abhimana in a Jiva. And then he goes far away from his real identity and then leads to all the problems which he faces in his lifetime. Thus, self ignorance leads to body identification. Just as one goes to sleep and he sees the dreams, but when he wakes up, he doesn't identify himself with the dream body. Similarly, a jnani, when he is understanding his higher self, even the waking life also is a dream life and he doesn't identify with it. So basically, self ignorance leads to the misidentity. This is the misidentity. Now, going to the next slide, what will happen when we identify ourselves with this body mind complex? Then what happens? We all know samsara, the life and the death and birth cycle will repeat itself. Sanjayate. One identifies himself with the finitude when he should identify with the infinite. He identifies himself with the mortal when he himself is a immortal. This misidentification will lead to the samsara, which will be in the form of unfulfillment, apurnatvam. That leads to kama, which leads to karma, which leads to punya papa, and enjoying sukha dukkha. And finally, it will lead to the birth and death cycle, which Komalji so well mentioned with the example of the giant eye, London Eye. So we have to get out of this. And this is not only for the moving beings, it is for all the beings in the universe. Stavara Jangamam is explained in this verse. Now comes the last. How do we really get out of this wheel? How do we remove the misidentification? The samsara part is just the symptoms, and a good doctor would never treat only the symptoms, he should treat the roots of the disease. So, one needs to remove this disease from its roots, and that is nothing but the removal of ignorance, which is the misidentity, and only only through jnanam. Sorry. Only through the knowledge which we get through the understanding of Vedanta, Upanishads, and especially through a guru. This knowledge, iti viddihi, understanding through this only will lead to removing the disease from its roots. This will make the merger of the next slides of the Atma to Paramatma. In the next slide, we see that 25, 26, and until this verse 27 teaches the travel of a jiva towards jivatma and finally merging into the Paramatma. Nothing but a river symbolizing this entire process of merging from the origin, that is jiva, then it as it goes along through its life cycle, jivatma, and finally going to the sea, ocean, and becoming one with the ocean. This is what is the summary of this verse. Hari Om.
Hari Om, Shri Guru Namaha. verse 28. Samam sarveshu bhuteshu tishtantam parameshwaram vinasyatva vinasyantam ya pashyati sa pashyati. Next slide, sir. From the 28th verse onwards, Krishna talks about many jnana phalams or benefits of the knowledge. In this verse, he talks about the phalam of right vision, proper perspective of the world, called samyak darshanam or sarvatra samadarshanam. This perspective is purely based on the teaching that the whole universe, being born out of both Prakriti and Purusha, it is a mixture of Prakriti and Purusha, just as every child will have the features of both father and mother. A right balanced vision is being aware that every human being, every living being, entire creation is a mixture of both Purusha and Prakriti. The only thing is that Prakriti, Prakriti part of a human being is made up of solid, tangible matter or anatma. Is saguna, savikara, mithya, achetana tattvam is physically perceptible, whereas the Purusha being nirguna, nirvikara, satya, chetana tattvam will not be visible to the physical eye, but it must be appreciated through our understanding with the eye of wisdom through Vedantic study. Just as, next slide, sir. Just as when I look at the fan, the physical part is visible to the eyes, but behind the physical part, there is a non-tangible, invisible electricity principle, which the eyes cannot see, but the knowledge lets me appreciate the mixture of the two. Similarly, when I look at living beings, the eyes only see the saguna part, but with Shastra Jnana Chakshu, I understand and appreciate the invisible Purusha in everyone. Next slide, sir. Vinasyatsu Sarveshu Bhuteshu. Bhuta means the body-mind complex, which are innumerable. Just as waves are innumerable, there are infinite number of bhutams, body-mind complexes, vinasyatsu, which are subject to birth and death, like the waves rising and settling, and all of them are vishamam, physically and intellectually different in nature. Out of the two principles, Prakriti and Purusha, the Prakriti part will be subject to change, Savikaratvam, but the Purusha part is not subject to any change. Prakriti part varies from individual to individual due to Varna, Ashrama, and Linga Bhedas. But Purusha is Samam, same in all living beings. Hence, Krishna says, Samam Sarveshu Bhuteshu Tishyantam Tishtantam Parameshwaram. Here the word Parameshwaram indicates Purusha, the Nirguna Nirvikara Satya Chetana Tattva. Samam Parameshwaram. There is one imperishable thing. Call it Sat principle, Sat or existing principle, or Chit or consciousness principle. That Sat Chit Atma is called Parameshwara. Parameshwaram is the very changeless Atma in everyone. Just as there is one water in and through the changing impermanent waves and bubbles, there is the Ekam, changeless Atma, in and through changing Anatma, body-mind complexes. Next slide, sir. Hence, Deho, Devalaya, Prokta. Body is the temple and Atma is the Lord. A wise person does not lose sight of this fact, does not lose sight of the Lord while transacting in life. Next slide, sir. At a time like many would have, I felt I have everything, a wonderful family, beautiful house, but missing something, missing some peace and joy. This Swami Paramatmanandaji says is a call for higher spiritual need. And when such a need arises, I should withdraw from Prakriti and own up Purusha Tattvam, which only gives peace, Purnatvam, etc. Thereafter, with a balanced vision of Purusha and Prakriti, and not losing sight of Purusha while transacting, is called Atmanishta or Sahaja Samadhi. Fortunately for me, Dr. Timappa Hegde sir came into my life and into Vedanta. Next slide, sir. Swamiji advises that, next slide, sir. Swamiji advises that we should emphasize Prakriti or Purusha according to context. When I look for Purnatvam, everlasting peace, security, happiness, or any of the higher needs of Prakriti, any of the higher needs, Prakriti will not be able to provide. But in the day-to-day transactions of this samsara, it is Prakriti. One who does not lose sight of Atma and has got samadarshanam, sa pashyanti, he alone has got the right vision. And he is called a seer or a sage, a knower of truth. Friends, Swamiji's commentary on Bhashyam is beyond words, but due to limited time, I shall be presenting a part of it only. Next slide, sir. The teaching in this word is differentiating between Kshetra and Kshetrajna, or Prakriti, Purusha, or matter and consciousness. Everyone is a mixture of Kshetra and Kshetrajna, and neither of them can do any transaction independently. Kshetram, being Jadam, by itself cannot do. Kshetrajna cannot do because it is Akarta. Hence, all Vyavahara, all the transactions, including Karma, Upasana, and Jnana Yogas, are done by the mixture of both Kshetra and Kshetrajna. When a Jnani says, Aham Brahmasmi, the knowledge as well as the statement also comes from the mixture only. Next slide, sir. According to Lord Krishna, the mixture is a blessing because everything is possible because of this mixture only. The problem is mixing them up in our understanding. When we say I, we do not recognize the mixture. The Kshetrajna, the real I, the Atma, we must claim for liberation. The Kshetram, the Ahankara, we must use for all transactions. We must use one as a costume and the other to claim as our real nature. The problem is we claim the costume as our real nature, hence, the problem is we claim the costume as our real nature, which is aviveka or non-discrimination. The solution is viveka or discrimination. Hence, the 13th chapter is titled Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhagaha. Vibhaga is discrimination. The process of separating the two is by cognition only and not physically. Next slide, sir. Further, in Anatma, there is a mixture of reflected consciousness and Atma, the original consciousness. All the Vyavaharas are done by this OC-RC mixture, and separating OC and RC parts cannot be done physically. Here again, of this mixture, when we use the word I, OC part I have to claim and RC part I must use. Using Bhagatyaga Lakshana, I should intellectually separate the RC, negating the limitation and location to claim Aham Brahmasmi. This is Jnanam. Next slide, sir. A few thoughts to ponder. Right knowledge gives us the eye to see rightly. As a sage, we see unity in diversity, the unchanging eternal in the changing. May we anchor in the self while acting in the world. Next slide, sir. May this vision of oneness bring peace, fullness, and freedom to all. With this prayer, I conclude. Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Shloka number 29 goes like this. Samam pashyan hi sarvatra samavasthitam ishwaram nahinasthyatmanatmanam tato yati param gatim. The word by word meaning goes like this. Samam, uniformity. Pashyam, Ishwaram, seeing the Lord. Samavasthitam sarvatra, who dwells everywhere alike. Nahinasti atmanam, he does not ruin himself. Atmana, by himself. Tataha yati, thereby he attains paramgatim, the supreme goal. In the next slide, we see that freedom from security is moksha. Indeed, he who sees the same Lord everywhere, equally dwelling, destroys not the self by self. Therefore, he goes to the highest goal, nahinasti atmana atmanam. The wise man who realizes that the Atman or the Lord exists in all does not destroy the self by the self, which means that the ignorant man destroys the self by identifying himself with the body. The man of wisdom sees and realizes the all-pervading true self, and so he is described as not having destroyed the all-pervading pure self by the limited understanding of the self. Then we see that for beholding alive the Lord dwelling everywhere, one injures not the self by self. Thus, one reaches the highest goal, which is called liberation. In the previous verse, the Lord described that the beholder does not injure self by self. Samam pashyan hi sarvatra. He who sees the Supreme Lord, who dwells alike in all beings, and who is imperishable, alone really sees. Moving on to the next slide. Here we see that in this verse, Lord Krishna gives the benefit of knowledge, which is Amritatva praptih. The first benefit was right vision, transcending mortality or immortality. As the prayer goes, Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amrutangamaya. Please take me from truth to the untruth to truth, from darkness to light, from mortality to immortality. That Amritatva praptih is the benefit he gives. Samam Pashyan, the wise person, learns to have the Samadarshanam. Samam Pashyan hi Sarvatra. In all the states, all the conditions, what does he do? He sees Samavasthitam Ishwaram. Again here, Ishvara means Purusha, the Atma, Samam, which is the same in everyone and which is very much present as the very Adhishtanam, the support of Prakriti, because Purusha is Satyam and Prakriti is Mithya. Without the support of Purusha, Prakriti cannot exist. Just as without the support of the screen, the movie does not move at all. The benefit of this is he attains the param gatim yati. He attains the highest goal of immortality, and this jnani does not destroy himself thereafter. According to Vedanta, world does not create any problem. Because of ignorance, we are killing ourselves. In the next slide, it shows us how a person destroys himself. It is because of the self-ignorance, ignorance of the fact that I am Atma. He identifies with the body, the Anatma. So ignorance leads to body identification. Once I identify with the body, I become a Karta. As Atma, I am not a Karta. Once Dehabhimana comes, I become a Karta, thus earning Punya, Papa, Karmani. Thus, everything Ajnani, he destroys himself from the standpoint of the body also. And every Ajnani destroys from the standpoint of Atma also. In the next slide, concluding, Lord Krishna says, Nahinasthyatmanatmanam. Unlike an Ajnani, a Jnani does not destroy himself. He has discovered immortality, param gatim yati, meaning he attains Amritatva. Thus, for beholding alike the Lord dwelling everywhere, one injures not the self by the self. Thus, one reaches the highest goal. To sum up, the non-knowers of the self are self-destroyers. They do not reap the real fruit of the self. Opposed to these, the perceiver of the real self, as explained earlier, does not injure the self by the self, in any way does not destroy it also. Thus, he reaches the highest goal, the fruit of spiritual life accrues to him. Hari Om. Thank you.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Moving on to next verse, 13.29. Prakrityaiva cha karmani kriyamanani sarvashaha ya pashyati tatatmanam akartaram sapashyati. The meaning of this verse is, they alone truly see who understand that all actions of the body are performed by the material nature, while the embodied soul actually does nothing. Next one, next slide. The third benefit of knowledge is given here. We have seen the first two. The first one is samadarshanam. The second one is Amritatva prapti. And this third prayojanam is given here, that is Akartritva prapti, discovering the fact that I am Akarta. Kartatvam alone is the cause of all problems, because as long as I am Karta, I can never avoid karmas, and therefore Karta will be eternally associated with karma, and karmas will never remain the same. They will gradually ripen. As karmas gradually ripen, they get converted into either favorable or unfavorable conditions. If I am a Karta, I can never escape from being a Bhokta, and that Bhokta status is a choiceless, helpless situation. Next slide. So you can never escape from being a Bhokta. Therefore, if you want to get out of Bhoktartvam, there is only one way out. You should get out of Kartatvam. So it is impossible to put an end to the cyclic arrival and departure of karmas. The only way out is you cannot stop the cycle, but you get away from the cycle. Let it continue. You come out of it like a giant wheel. Rather than trying to stop it, you just come out of it. Similarly, Prakriti cannot be stopped. You transcend Prakriti like waking up from dream. Next slide. The Tantra Bhagavat states, the ego of being the body and the pride of being the doer trap the soul in the samsara of life and death. In material consciousness, the ego makes us identify with the body, and thus we attribute the actions of the body to the soul and think, I am doing this, I am doing that. But the enlightened soul perceives that while eating, drinking, talking, walking, etc., it is only the body that acts, yet it cannot shrug the responsibility of actions performed by the body. Next slide. Just as the president is responsible for decision of the country to go to war, although he does not fight in it himself, similarly, The soul is responsible for actions of a living entity, even though they are performed with the body, mind, and intellect. That is why spiritual aspirant must keep both the sides in mind. Next slide. Maharshi Vashisht instructed Ram. Ram, while working externally, exert yourself as if the results depend upon you, but internally realize yourself to be the non-doer. That is why they alone truly see, who understand that all the actions of the body are performed by the material nature, while the embodied soul actually does nothing. The meaning of this verse. Hari Om.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, verse 31. Yada bhuta pritag bhavam ekastam anupashyati tata eva cha vistaram brahma sampadyate tada. Word meaning yada, when, anupashyati, one sees with the help of Guru and Shastra. Bhuta Pritak Bhavam, the diversity of beings, Ekastam, to be based on the one self Atma, Cha Vistaram, and their origination, manifestation, Tata Eva, to be from that self alone, Tada, then Sampadyate Brahma, one becomes Brahman. Next slide, please. The first line of this verse is Bhuta Pritag Bhavam Ekasmin Atmani Sthitam. How does this right vision evolve? Swamiji explains with the space enclosures example, from which we understand the reality of space as the sthiti karanam of all enclosures. Shrishti, sthiti, laya of everything happens in this space only as perceived by our eyes. Taittreya Upanishad verse says, Tasmadva etasmad atmana akashaha sambhutaha till Anat Purushaha. Here it means all things in creation are born out of Atman alone. From this Atman alone, space, a subtle substance, is born. The space enclosures understanding is then equated to consciousness body's understanding. Therefore, with clarity, one understands that all bodies are resting in one consciousness, Atma. Jnani's eye of wisdom sees the presence of Ekatma on which Kshetram manifests. Therefore, Jnani must remember that I am not a limited enclosed consciousness. I am the all-pervading Brahman, seemingly enclosed. Here, the real meaning of I is Kshetrajna, Shrishti Sthiti Laya Karanam, and the whole world, Kshetram, is Karyam, described as Ekajam, Ekastam, Ekalam. Ekajam means born of one Atma. Ekastam means they all remain in me, borrowing existence from me. Sthiti Karanam. Ekalam means the whole Jagat resolves into me. Yada, whenever one enjoys this vision spontaneously, then the subconscious thinking, I am in the world, could be consciously revised to, I am not in the world is in me. Ekastam anupashyati. Next slide, please. The second line of the verse is Tata eva cha vistaram brahma sampadyate, points to Brahmatva praptih phalam. To assimilate this idea, Swamiji explains that in scriptures, self-knowledge is compared to waking up from a dream. As a dreamer, I am a creature within the dream, whereas as a waker, I realize that I am the creator of dream. A big reversal. The creature has become the creator. This understanding only required waking up, which is nothing but disidentifying with dream body and claiming the waker nature. Vedanta says this universe is another channel of dream, and just as I convert myself from dream creature to dream creator, I can convert myself from the waking world creature to the waking world creator. And this conversion is accomplished by disidentification from the body. Disidentification from dream body made me waker number one, and disidentification from this body will make me a higher waker. And as a higher waker, what do I claim to be? Next slide, please. Yeah, this one. This is revealed in the Kaivalya Upanishad mantra, Mai eva sakalam jatam, Mai sarvam pratishtitam, Mai sarvam layam yati, Tad brahmadvayam asmyaham. Just as I create a special dream body for myself for transacting in the dream world, this body is also created by me, who am the original waker, Atma, Kshetrajna. The waker is able to make this mantra statement with regard to dream creation. Jnani is able to make the same statement with regard to this creation. Next slide. By the teachings of Guru and Shastras, Anupashyati Tata Eva Cha Vistaram means the understanding that this pluralistic universe emerges or originates from the very same Atma, meaning I am Shrishti Karanam also. Vistaram is Utpatim, points to the origination of the universe. The Kshetram universe already exists in potential seed form and unfolds, expands, and manifests on Kshetrajna. Avyakta Nama Rupa becomes Vyakta Nama Rupa Anatma. Swamiji says Shri Krishna presents the Kshetrajna Kshetram Sambandha here. Anatma Prapancha Kshetram does not or cannot exist independently of Kshetrajna. If one wants liberation, one should allow it to exist independently with the understanding that the entire Anatma Prapancha rises, rests, and resolves into me. Then I can claim Aham Brahma Asmi. Then alone I can say I am Karanam and then assert the world is Karyam. Karana Rupena Aham Satyam. Karya Rupena Kshetram Mithya. Satyam cannot be disturbed by Mithya. Intellectually, we can remove vision of Satyatvam of the world with this understanding. Shri Krishna says, Tada, then alone Brahma Sampadyate. Just as the dreamer on waking up has become one with his own higher waker nature, similarly, I have become one with Brahman, my own higher nature. Brahmatva praptih. Next slide. How do I know whether I have woken up from dream or not? When I wake up, I can say the whole dream has come from me. But when I am in dream world, I can never say the dream world has come from me. I see dream world as outside me. Swamiji quotes the Dakshinamurti opening shloka, Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam Nija Antargatam Pashyan Atmani Mayaya Bahirivot Bhutam Yata Nidraya. If you see the world outside you, you are dreaming. If you see the world inside you, you have woken up. Waking up is called Brahma Bhavaha. Tada, at that time, Jnana Kale Brahma Sampadyate. Gnani's understanding of Brahman has evolved from the triangular format to the binary format, and as one progresses into greater understanding and wakes up to the reality of one's higher nature, he understands he is Brahman all the time. Brahmaiva bhavati iti artha. Thank you, sir. Harihi Om.
Thank you, Kirti Madam, for the detailed explanation of this very important verse, which will take us to Brahmatva prapti. This is a little different than the earlier verses, as we have seen in the earlier verses. Throughout the 13th chapter, Lord Krishna repeatedly emphasizes Atma Anatma Viveka. That is Drik Drishya Viveka, Kshetra Kshetrajna Viveka, Purusha Prakriti, observer observed, consciousness matter, changelessness and changing. So we have now come to a stage where we realize these two entities. I am different from what I observe. I am different from whatever thing I can observe. Here, bhuta pratak bhava. So once we realize the physical beings around us is just diverse forms which is generated out of our own Atma. The key here is to note the difference from the previous verses and this is that here, till here we have seen when we say Drik Drishya, Kshetrajna Kshetra, Purusha Prakriti, we have reached to the level of two entities. That means we have reached a stage of Dvaitam. As long as we are having a second, samsara continues. As long as there is Dvaitam, that restlessness continues. We have not reached that eternal peace, security, and eternal happiness till a second entity exists. In some of the darshanas, like Sankhya Darshana and Yoga Darshana, this is the final, ultimate. For them, in Sankhya and Yoga, observer is real, observed Prakriti is also real. So this is the subtle difference between the darshanas which we need to open up now as we gain maturity into understanding. So when we say observer is real and observed is also real, two separate entities, Dvaitam continues, Samsara continues. In this verse, what we see the additional extra hint, which is very clear as we go through that, is that whatever we see is not having an independent existence of its own. The observed, the kshetra, is something which is arising up from my own being, from my own existence. Sat Chit Ananda, which is seen, projected through our own mind and intellect, will be seen as this Bhuta Pratak Bhava, diversity of things, beings around us. Everything rises from me, rests in me, and resolves into me. Srishti Sthiti Laya. Mai eva sakalam jatam, mai sarvam pratishtitam. Mai sarvam layam yati. That means, so there is no separate second entity there. Aham Brahmasmi. So this is the ultimate step of Vedantic teaching, where no second existence is allowed or accepted. When I am the creator of everything, so nothing else remains to be resolved in this universe around us. So this, in that way, there are only one or two verses in this whole of 13th chapter, which will take to that penultimate step of Vedantic teaching. And this 31st verse is the very nice verse, very beautifully explained by Srimati Kirti in detail. So as we go along in the further chapters also, we'll have to keep that in mind, the subtle difference between different darshanas and how Vedantic darshana differs from some other darshanas, which will accept and be satisfied with two entities, Kshetra and Kshetrajna. We have to go further, one more step, to see that Kshetra is something which is arising out of Kshetrajna only. Okay, so that's a little extra thing for our food for thought. With this, we come to the conclusion of today's session. Over to Srimati Pannaga. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear Dr. Komal sir, and to all our speakers for explaining these profound verses of Vedanta. As one of our speakers mentioned that The whole of the Upanishads have been condensed into the Bhagavad Gita, and these verses are the crux of Vedanta. Like Dr. Sachin said, our whole spiritual journey is from Jiva to Jivatma to Paramatma. And as Kirti ma'am has very nicely put it here, if you see, as Swami Paramarthananda ji tells us, if you see the world outside you, you are dreaming. If you see the world inside you, you have woken up. Just like it is the little drops of water that go on to make the mighty ocean, it is all these classes that we attend week after week which help us imbibe this Vedantic knowledge and allow it to transform our very core. With this, we end today's class. We will meet again for our Atma Bodha revision class on the 2nd of May 2025. Chanting the Shanti Patha. ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ. Thank you.